Goshen Theater Drama Club members, friends, and fans, welcome to episode, I don't even know, of Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks. 12?
I think.
We had to add fingers last time, I remember.
So maybe 12?
Episode 12? That is how it will be listed on YouTube. Episode 12 question mark of Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks. We are back from our mid-season hiatus. I know we left you on a cliffhanger, and you're probably wondering what happened to Miss Marple. Well, we're not going to cover it. We're just going to skip straight ahead. We are. And if you don't know who Miss Marple is, you need to invest in some BBC watching literature, mysteries. It's all good. Oh my goodness. Joining us today are Paul Regano and the Quarantine Queens. How's everybody doing? How are you, Miss Katie? How was your break?
Oh, it's been great. We spent our time with a lot of kiddos. They learned a lot because we had Goshen Theater Drama Club 2020. Whoop, whoop. First year, we took it all virtual. We thought we'd have a lot more issues. Technology wasn't always kind, but we got through it, and those kids got through it, and that's what matters. They loved it.
Perfect. The technology thing was mostly awesome. So, yeah, just a few hiccups here and there.
Yeah, and Wi-Fi being ridiculous. Yeah, usually kiddos being like, everybody's frozen. We're like, log out and log back in.
That was this. Miss Molly, how was your break?
It was good. It was very similar to Miss Katie's break with the Goshen Theater Drama Club. Taught lots of dance classes on Zoom. Figured out the best way for music to play, audio settings, all of that fun stuff. At the same time, I've been socially distance performing at the Barns at Napanee, the Round Barn Theater. So I'm working as an actress, choreographing all the shows. We are still running The Land That I Love, which is a musical about Indiana and the history of Indiana, and it's fun. And we start Into the Woods rehearsals on August 4th, and we open that on August 20th, in which I will be playing Little Red Riding Hood and choreographing the show. So kind of ramping up for that. Spent the 3 days off I had in Indianapolis, went to the Zoom. So it's been good.
And Mr. Regano, how could I forget? Paul Elizabeth Regano, how was your hiatus?
Good. It's been pretty productive. I shaved my head, as you might have seen. It was hot here, and I had always wanted to try it, and I'm not seeing anyone, so I thought I'd go for it, except for all of you lovely people, of course. I wrote half of a musical and a quarter of another musical. We've been doing a lot of writing as I'm cooped up in here, which is great. Very productive. So looking forward to seeing human beings sing those songs possibly next year.
Hey, that's exciting.
We'll see what COVID does.
What about you, Amber? What have you been up to?
I was administrating all of the drama club craziness. The last couple weeks, I've been trying to close up business on all of the things for drama club, including doing our financial statements. Oh, the arts are so fun. Getting stuff ready for our grant report for Kiwanis, who is our generous sponsor for Goshen Theater Drama Club. And also doing some audio editing and mastering for our music videos, one of which is completely finished. We did Children Will Listen with the kids, and it's done. Ryan yesterday, who's our video editor, very professional, also my life human, he was working on what we call the circus dance, which was a self-choreographed project that the children choreographed.
It's amazing.
However, oh, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, I was just saying, I can't.
Oh, you'll love it. However, the music for the circus dance will send you to an asylum. It is
You're welcome.
madness incarnate. Oh, and like, it's fine when you hear it a couple times from the ballroom while you're in your office. That's fine. It's fine to hear it a few times in a row, just in general. But when one in your house is editing a video and you hear the same 4 bars looped for 2 hours,
Yeah.
so in addition to stuff with camp and work, Goshen Theater is getting ready to reopen. So we've had a ton of like, I'm setting up inspections and all of our licenses, making sure everything is done, working on our calendar. We're trying to get a social distance slash safe slash like concession and bar free movie plan together to make programming work. While we're in the age of COVID, we have our Cintas rep came in to install hand sanitizer stands all over the building this week. So we've been doing that in addition to that. And I am doing a staged reading at the Wellfield Botanical Garden of Calendar Girls coming up on August 6th, 4th, sometime in August, close to the beginning of August. I'm playing Cora, who is the singer slash punchline person. So that's good casting for me. And Ryan's in it as well. He's playing the photographer, Christopher, I think his name is. No, that's got to be wrong. But yeah, he plays the photographer. It's a great show. As a staged reading, you do sort of lose a lot of the charm and delight of Calendar Girls, but it's going to be great. It's outdoors. It's a gala event. It's in support of Elkhart Civic Theater and a charity called Hello Gorgeous, which does makeovers for women in cancer treatment.
Love that.
Yeah, so that's what I've been up to. So taking some time off. Oh my goodness. So this is normally the part of the show where we take your questions from our previous episode. And I'm going to be honest, if there were questions from last episode, I don't remember what they are because it was so long ago and we have done so many things as a drama club since then. So we've had some general drama club questions and some general theater questions from some of our students over the last week. In particular, I'm gonna throw these to the group and we'll see what sticks because inquiring minds want to know. So Miss Katie, question 1 this week would be, what is drama club going to be doing for the rest of the school year or into the school year through the rest of 2020? So that's been a question that I've been getting a lot of. And there's no big answer to this question, but what do you think, Miss Katie? What would be good?
Well, Amber and I have been discussing trying to get a class that would be once or twice a week on the regular. We've also talked about the possibility of doing something for a fall break when you guys take your fall break or your winter break. So we are discussing. We haven't come up with a solid plan yet, but we'll work on it. But for those who are looking for private lessons, our instructors are open. I know TJ Bird would be open to doing voice lessons if you guys were interested. I'm sure Juan Carlos might be interested if you reach out to him. Molly, I've already tapped Molly to do private lessons for my future stepchild in case we don't send her to a studio because of safety reasons. So if you're looking for a dance teacher, Miss Molly might have some very little time in between being a working actress and everything. And then Paul, I don't know if you would be interested, but I know Paul does do voice lessons. Amber does voice lessons. I do monologue coaching, whatever it is. So even if we don't have any program running, you have an outlet, contact us and we can put you in touch with people who could be an outlet for you while we get everything set up and running.
Yeah, I think we're going to put a form up on goshentheater.com or goshentheater.org that is, hey, are you interested in taking lessons so we can facilitate stuff for folks.
I am available to do a lecture series on Stephen Sondheim between 1960 and 1975 and his impact on modern musical theater, if there is interest.
I love that. We should do a Zoom seminar with that. And wouldn't that be fun?
Hey, absolutely.
the Bergano effect. That's what we could call our seminar series. So that is that. So Miss Molly, one of the questions that I got, which is from a friend of mine who's a choreographer, was about the challenge of teaching dance online. And basically, how did you make it work, and did it work, and what would you do differently? Like, what's your advice for like choreographers and people who are kind of still stuck at home? Studios are still closed in a lot of places. What would be your advice for people for like a teach from home situation for choreo?
That is such a good question, and it's something that I've been thinking a lot about reflecting on drama club, because not gonna lie, like the first few classes I was really struggling just because there were a lot of people in the class, the audio wasn't working. Well, I mean, it was working, but it wasn't like the best it could be. To me in the room, I could hear myself great and I could hear the music great, but they couldn't hear me. It's just hard to get feedback from the students when you're teaching. You don't really know if you're going too fast or you're going too slow, because you kind of have to like then go back and like check and try and watch everyone. And like some people you can't see super well just because of where they are. Some people's videos are off, some people are muted and their video is off. And so that, to be honest, that was a challenge. And I don't know if there is a great way to get around all of those things. But at the end of the day, we accomplished every piece of choreography. And I think that myself as a choreographer, I really like focusing on the storytelling of choreography and like how movement can further the story. So my classes were technique based, and we definitely spent time talking about that because it's really important and it's the foundation of dance. But I think it was more like, what does this move mean, and like why are you doing this? And I really liked spending time discussing with the class as well, because that's something that's just a lot easier to do over Zoom. Trying to show some videos and then having them talk about like what they noticed in the videos of those performers. And figuring out those settings of like how to share videos and have it be seen well and heard well by everyone in the Zoom class. So, I mean, it was definitely doable. I had just a portable speaker that I hooked up my phone to, put it right by the computer, and I just played the music and that ended up working better than sharing my sound and using a mic because there was a lag. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I tried a lot of different ideas. Now I kind of feel like I'm just rambling on, but it is very challenging. There were days that it was just hard, but we got it done. Like we accomplished every single thing, and they did great. And it was really cool to see some of the students who came in to do their videotaping at the theater. It was so cool to see them doing my choreography, and I'd never been in the room with them ever before. So that was pretty special.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you did really well, and kind of one of the strengths of Drama Club in general, was that through our 96 total hours of instruction, Paul, 96 hours of instruction, we calculated credit hours for a full semester of a bachelor's degree, right? In 3 weeks, we did more instruction hours than the equivalent bachelor's degree. So we're all just handing out diplomas. But one of the things that I think you did really well, especially in class, was not just, hey, we're putting on a show, not just, hey, we're going to do a dance, we're going to sing a song. Everything in club was about, hey, look at dance. Hey, observe storytelling. Like, how are these things being like told? How are we communicating to the audience? And I've never seen a club or a summer camp that had a dance teacher that said, okay, we're doing a dance from Newsies. Let's talk about the choreographer from Newsies. Let's talk about the development of the movement language in Newsies. Like, I've never seen that before. And I think that's one of the strengths that the club had, that you have as an instructor. And that is kind of a great tip for anybody who is teaching in an online platform. So I think that was great. Miss Katie's the same way. Juan Carlos did so much conversation with people about, okay, let's talk about these music theory terms, or let's talk about dynamics, or how you're engaging with the music, or how you feel on a given day, and what you're doing, how we're communicating. Yeah, he even did a lesson on, what was it, like online etiquette?
Yeah.
In the music class.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would add, just for those who are wanting to do online programming, having an extra person as like a chat room assistant is huge for everyone, because as an instructor, you're not able to keep up with the chat window necessarily. So having someone to run that for you. And then for dance, I mean, there were times where I ran up and helped Molly run something. So if you have an onboard assistant dancer to help run things, or so that she can so Molly can step out and watch the students, see what they're getting, or vice versa, that assistant can step out and be like, they need this again, so that you have double eyes on the kids. I think it really would help. The few times that we did it, I feel like the kids felt like it helped a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah, this is a whole new world. And I think that with next semester and possibly the spring semester being at least partially virtual, and I think some parents maybe taking their kids through virtual academy now instead of sending them to conventional school, maybe not necessarily permanently, but for part of the foreseeable future, that online program and online programming, particularly in the arts, is going to be super important because, I mean, it's always the first thing to get cut because it seems expensive and like it doesn't have a lot of revenue. But education is not about revenue. So, I mean, yeah, we're going to need to kind of step up a little bit into the online world.
yeah, I mean, we really,
Say that again, Paul.
No, bad joke. Ignore it.
I was just going to piggyback off of what Amber had been saying. We really did a critical thinking thing with our camp. Like, we asked the whys. We made them ask the whys. And that's something you don't find in a hands-on camp usually. I don't think. It's not one that I've ever run before. So I've never expected that of my students. It's a very quick process usually because we're trying to put a show up in a week. But this was a deep dive, and we really did use our critical thinking skills, which is so important in no matter what field you end up in, no matter what class you're in, to have the skill to critically think the way we were teaching our kids to critically think is just so important.
Yeah, and we never pulled a punch either with any of our educational stuff. We did a masks unit, and it may be one of the most extensive lessons that I have ever seen in the history of mask in theater. It's ridiculous. Also, the theater history lesson. I'm the writer of the curriculum on the most part. Katie and I worked on the curriculum together and sort of the format of things. And then she came up with outlines for many of the lessons, and then I fleshed them out into PowerPoint presentations. Yeah, we started with West African storytelling and the culture of West African storytelling that still exists today, that is our most ancient form of theater. And we went from there, and it was not just the history of European theater, it was the history of world theater, which many don't learn in their bachelor's degree programs. Oh my gosh. But yeah, camp went great. We had an amazing time, and I think those learning objectives were like prime on our minds when we were deciding how we were going to teach the camp and what we were going to do. Next year's going to be even better. I think adding the we're going to put a show on element to the things that we already do is going to get us to skyrocket. And I like the 3-week format.
Yeah.
It was great. So Paul.
So Amber.
How you doing?
Yeah. Is that my question?
Yeah.
Great. I'm a little jet lagged, but I am otherwise well.
Awesome. So I think that this is not necessarily like a question that we've gotten from the group because it's been so long since we've had a table talk and so long since we did a Tuesday, Thursday lesson. There have been so many things. And we've talked extensively about creating during the quarantine, like creating content for people and creating content for yourself. I know that you've been working on some shows during the last bit of time while we've been on our break. Are these shows that you're working on with other folks with an eye of like producing them, or are these projects for you that are like pieces of Paul's heart?
I wish I could the latter. I think, I mean, like anything you write has to have a piece of your heart in it, or else why are you writing it, really? But yeah, I think in one of the early episodes we mentioned that I wrote a song, this 5-minute online piece that was about quarantine, that won the Rave Theater Social Distancing Festival, and it got a bit of attention. And from that, a few people have reached out to myself and my collaborator, who happens to be my brother, and said, "Hey, I'm looking to create something, and I saw what you did, and I like the way you create things. Will you create this thing for me?" And we've had to say no to a couple of people, which is an interesting thing. And that's the first for me, for someone to say, "Hey, do you want to do this creative thing?" And for me to say, "I have so many creative things. No, I can't." And to get to like pick and choose projects, it's a very, very new sensation. But one of them was a commission for a theater company. So the plan is to put that on next spring, assuming things open up and go well. And if not, it'll be the following spring. But another is someone who had an idea and has some connections and says, "I have this idea, but I'm not a creator, so I'd like to hire you to create this, and then we'll work together." So there isn't really a plan to produce that. That's a little bit more of the second one, of just something that I care about and a story that I want to tell. And hopefully someday people will sit in a theater and listen to it and watch it.
I love that.
That's that. My brother and I write a video chat just like this, and scream at each other because video chats are sometimes a little difficult because we're Italian and we talk over each other. So.
Well, I'm not Italian and I have the same problem, so.
All right.
It may be a human condition.
Interesting.
So our plan for today's episode, or the title of today's episode, is Hamilternatives. That's terrible.
Oh, I love it.
Hamilton plus. Going
Beyond Hamilton. Go ham.
Go ham for not ham.
Hamilton of fun.
Oh! So one of the significant events that occurred during our hiatus in the theater world is that Hamilton, the Broadway historical smash experience, the hip opera, I've heard someone refer to it as a hip opera, was released on Disney Plus. So we actually had like a day where we talked about Hamilton with the kids at Drama Club, because it happened on our day off. We gave them a day off on July 3rd so they could all observe the holiday with their family / barbecue / run through a sprinkler. I don't know. Is that what people do still? Probably.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fire hydrants. Yes. So we talked a lot about, like, looking at Hamilton with a critical eye and the ways that they told the story and what different elements were used, and texture and color and light and shadow. So we did a deep dive on it. But over the last week or so, I realized that there are so many things to watch on streaming platforms right now, on different streaming services. And there are a lot of things just happening. And, you guys hear that? That's the office phone.
They need you.
They do.
Batman, come.
It happens through the computer, and I can't mute it. So here we are. Wow, that's tenacious. Oh my goodness. And now the question arises, do we edit that out?
Nah, keep it. We're real people. Too much effort.
Should I just use the password so we have to?
No, Paul.
Fair enough.
So I know that a friend of mine is doing quarantine happy hour every Thursday, and he normally plays at the Roxy. He's a pianist. who plays at the Roxy on Thursday night. So instead of doing that, he has like an open mic that he does and takes requests via Facebook and Instagram. And it's great. So I'll grab a cup of tea or something and sit down from 6 to 7 and just listen to him play the piano. And I'll put in my requests. Every once in a while, one of mine will get through, which is very exciting and fun to see. So I know that a lot of performers are doing things on their own, but what are some other streaming or like online things that you guys have been watching on the art side, or like, you know, alternatives to ham?
I've really been going, I've been doing deep dives into the catalog of Broadway HD, which is, if you don't know about it, I know a lot of people that I talk with online who are not in New York and do not have immediate access to Broadway like I do. Of course, not right now. Nobody has access to Broadway right now. But people say, like, I can't come and see theater. I wish that there was more theater online that I could watch. And they don't know that it's right there. It is Broadway HD. It costs the same as a Netflix subscription, and it has a ton of titles. It's mainly shows that are no longer running. I don't think they have anything anymore that is currently on Broadway. But it has the 2016 She Loved Me revival and the I'm gonna blank, the King and I revival. It has Act 1 by Moss Hart, or about Moss Hart, and a ton of other things that you maybe never have even heard of, and now you don't have to pay Broadway prices to discover it. And if you get 10 minutes into it and say, wow, this is terrible, I would never go to see this, and just turn it off. It's great. It's a fantastic resource, absolutely worth supporting, because the more that we support it, the more titles they can carry and the more they can bring theater to people who are not, bring Broadway specifically to places that aren't Broadway, because theater exists all over the country, folks. We know this. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of Broadway HD.
Yeah, there's a few theater companies that are producing right now. Most of them are doing social distance houses, limited runs. I know Beef and Boards is reopening in Indianapolis. And if you watch the video on their COVID-19 precautions, you will be shocked by the amount of things that they're doing. They are really looking out for the safety and health of their patrons, like to the point where they're having the venue like ionized between every single performance, and like everybody's in like isolated sections. Like it's crazy. Dividers, all kinds of stuff. Like they're really doing it right. So in Indiana, I know Beef and Boards is running some shows. Who else? Oh yeah, the Barnes at Napanee is doing Land That I Love, starring Miss Molly. And then Into the Woods, which is, I think, honestly, when I was younger-ish, like a kid, I think 6th or 7th grade, that's the first time I was introduced to Into the Woods. And it really, it was one of those shows that like opened my eyes to a lot of different things and like ways that people tell stories. And I thought it was so clever and familiar and novel at the same time. You know how you have that an experience where something is both new and familiar, and how wonderful that is? Like that's always what I want out of something. And it's impossible. But Influence has that. When does that open, Molly?
August 20th, and it runs until October 17th. So if you still even feel like you want to wait another month before you're like going out to see theater, like we're still going to be doing the show. The audience is social distance. We require masks inside. Us as actors, we're very safe. We fill out a COVID form every day. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. I'm the choreographer, so I'm making sure we're not having hand-to-hand contact whenever possible in the show. It's only a cast of 14 people, so we're really able to like just be together and sort of self-isolate in that way. So I'm very, very excited about it. Not that I don't also love the show that I'm in now. It's very fun, but this is the first like real Broadway musical show that's just so well written that I've done since October. So I'm just very, very thankful about it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
There's one set of actors that kiss each other in that show. And they're not necessarily a couple in the show. No spoilers, I'm not gonna tell you who. But I was like, oh, how are they gonna do that thing where those people have to kiss each other, but they're married in real life?
I know, it literally worked out so well.
Like, oh, they They've been hanging out this whole time. No problem. Miss Katie, what are your thoughts? What kind of outlets are you seeing? Are there anything online, anything live? There's
Sorry, my cat wants to be seen today, apparently.
Cats the musical.
Absolutely not.
Cat live in 3D.
No, so strangely enough, the other day I was just going through Netflix and found Fiddler on the Roof, the movie musical. Guys, I like put it on because we had Hannah and she's never seen it, and I was like, this is one of my favorite musicals. Like, it's the staple of get out of here of my love of historical musical theater, because it is historical. It's based on true stories about what was happening, and so it's got that social commentary that you got from Hamilton. It's got the historical aspect that you got from Hamilton, and I highly, highly, highly recommend watching it if you never have, and even if you have, rewatch it. It never gets old. But other than that, I know West Side Story, another social commentary piece, is on Netflix as well. Newsies, which will have the same kind of social commentary, revolting, pushing for change kind of feel, historicalness to it. Newsies is on Disney Plus. Let's see. I just looked up. There's Black is King, and what it is Beyonce has taken the soundtrack for Lion King, and she's reimagined it to be like this visual. I guess it's more like a music video kind of thing, but she's reimagined the lessons from the Lion King for a younger audience. So I want to check that out. In the Heights, isn't that coming out soon? No. Got postponed, yeah. Okay. I know Six, the musical. I personally have never seen it. I've never even listened to the music. Shame on me. But I hear it's amazing. It's got that historicalness to it to check out.
Do you know what they're doing, Miss Katie, with Six? They are doing a national tour of Six. And it's going to be a drive-in national tour. They are basically doing like fair arenas, and they're taking like outdoor concert format. So like scaffolds, lights, stage, band, and they are traveling with their own everything. And then people are going to drive in.
Wow.
Amazing.
I'm going to be looking for some tickets.
Are they bringing that to the US? I heard they were doing a UK tour. Is it officially coming?
I heard that it was happening, but I heard that it was happening from someone who's, maybe I shouldn't have said that publicly.
Gonna get sued now. They're not owned by Disney, are they?
Probably.
Isn't everyone?
Yes, at this point, yes.
But yeah, I think even if they're not coming to the US, even if it's just UK, they'll probably tape it.
Yes.
On tour. It's awesome. Six is amazing.
There's also, I was trying to think of like historical plays or musicals that people would be interested in if they're looking for the history kind of thing. And Diary of Anne Frank comes to mind. And then They Came for Me comes to mind. I don't know that you'll ever find a staged version of that, but if you ever get a chance to read it, you totally should. And then Amber, what is the name of the FX special that we talked so much about during camp, you and I, about Fosse that I need to watch? Yes. So I've got that on my list.
It's not great for kids. So if you
don't watch it, children.
If you're under 18, don't watch it. It's also, you're not going to really find it to be that entertaining, to be honest, if you're under 18, because it's dry and cerebral. And yes.
Also,
Paul.
if you're into the history thing, 1776 is an amazing movie adaptation of a musical. And it stars Mr. Feeney, so come on.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that one was streaming anywhere. Do you know if that was streaming?
Oh, I know a bunch of friends who watched it on the 4th of July, but I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's on Netflix.
Okay.
Maybe.
I know that the Globe in London was streaming a lot of their shows on YouTube. I'm not sure if they're still up. I'm assuming they are, but yeah, that looks pretty cool. I've been wanting to check those out.
RSC too, Royal Shakespeare Company, has been doing similar stuff. Some of their productions, I don't remember what cable network it was on, maybe Sundance Channel. do you guys know Mrs. Dursley from Harry Potter? She played Richard II.
Oh,
What?
Yeah.
that is so interesting.
Nice.
And it was incredible. So she played Richard II, and the Queen was played by a gentleman.
I'm gonna just write that down.
Look it up. She's incredible. It's amazing. And they modified none of the text. It's all the text as is.
Also, National Theater has been streaming stuff. I know, right? For like a week at a time. They did One Man, Two Governors a few weeks back, and I can't remember the other stuff that they've done. Also, the Met is streaming operas.
Oh, what are they doing now? Cinderella, the Met, or no, it's San Francisco Opera is also doing it. And their production of Cinderella, which is delightful, is streaming at the end of this month for like 4 or 5 days only.
Awesome.
And the opera of Cinderella is a little bit different than the traditional story. And it's twisty in a way you'll really like. For something written in the 19th century, it has a very modern sensibility. And especially for an opera. I was like, I love this. This is great. There's a few arias in there too, if anybody needs anything classical for their book. Molly.
I'm thinking. I like this idea.
Yeah. It's always good to have stuff that nobody else has, that no one can think of in your book. I'm trying to think too of like things that hit that historical musicals or musicals based on history. I think one of the other things that Hamilton does well is that it's based on a book.
Yeah.
There are a ton of musicals based on books like Oliver. Actually, like Oklahoma is based on a book, believe it or not, which is very popular in the 19th century and early 20th century. Not necessarily popular now. Everybody knows Oklahoma, but nobody knows Green Grow the Lilacs anymore. And I've always thought about that title and thought, aren't that lilacs purple?
I never even thought of
That's
it.
true.
Purple Grow the Lilacs. Amazing
South Pacific.
South Pacific. Amazing Grace is another musical based on history. It's about the guy who wrote Amazing Grace.
Who had a very, very interesting life.
Crazy life. And I think they really only kind of scratched the surface with the musical, to be honest. Like,
if you are into the Hamill stuff and you're a big Lin-Manuel Hamill fan, there is, sorry, I don't know if you can hear the sirens in the distance right now.
the city.
Kids. The Hulu just released a documentary about his show Freestyle Love Supreme, which started, I think, when he was in college, and grew, and it played off Broadway, and then recently, just like last year, they had a bunch of people in a rotating cast, and it was running on Broadway, and it was very exclusive, and you couldn't even bring your cell phone into the theater.
Wow.
Oh yeah. It was a big deal because they didn't want any bootlegs, because it's an improv rap show.
Yeah.
So they really wanted it to be, you didn't know exactly what you were walking into, and you just went in and yeah.
Another good one that there may or may not be a bootleg to on YouTube, but you can definitely listen to the soundtrack, is Hadestown, which is based on Orpheus and Eurydice and Greek mythology, if you're into that. I saw it on Broadway a week before quarantine, like a week before Broadway went dark, original cast, and it is truly, I think, the best theater experience I've ever had seeing that show. Incredible. It was so good. And I hadn't seen Hamilton like 2 nights before.
Time out. How did I not know that you were in New York?
Because I didn't know you yet, Paul.
Right. I just feel like we've just known each other forever.
I know. I was actually thinking the same thing. That's so weird.
If I had a concert that week, I would have been like, come to my concert.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I would have loved that.
Well, it ended up getting canceled because it was the day after the Broadway shutdown. But it's all online now if you want to.
Ooh. Well, that's another thing everyone should go watch.
Not all of it is great for kids, but most of it is.
I think The Color Purple is on Netflix. That one you should definitely, if you watch it, check with your parents first and like maybe watch it as a family kind of situation. It's got some adult content for it.
Themes.
That could be hard to handle. Yes. Could be difficult to handle by yourself. So.
Right. And sometimes you don't know the full historical context as a kid, and it's good to have an adult there who knows a little bit more or who has Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I could talk to you about it. Because I think one of the things about historical musicals, you either have a compelling individual at the center of that story or a compelling and dramatic set of circumstances that have existed in history that they're telling the story of. And things like Fiddler on the Roof that Katie was talking about, there was a great deal happening in Russia at the time. Oh, my coffee's done. There was a great deal happening in Russia at the time that is hard to understand, I think, for a lot of us, especially artists and young artists, because we come to our art because we are open and honest with ourselves and emotional people. And sometimes we need the structure of the arts. Sometimes we need the community of the arts. So as community-minded people who are seeking out their tribe, sometimes it's really difficult to understand, and sometimes also really easy to understand how some of these things can happen in history. Like the stuff that happened in Fiddler is
True story.
True story, exactly. And it is hard to handle. It's hard to talk about. Like, why? Why did these things happen? And if you want to, Joseph Stein, who wrote Fiddler on the Roof, the book, not the music, Joseph Stein wrote another show called Rags, which in his mind, he calls it the sequel. It's like a continuing story. Yes, write it down, Miss Katie.
I will.
The continuing story of people who had been persecuted and came to America. And it's sort of their struggles being in America. It's not a direct sequel to Fiddler on the Roof by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a continuation of that sort of narrative. What, Paul?
Tevye does not make an appearance.
No. Tevye the Dairyman.
But the other interesting thing about Rags, for me, it's one of the most interesting creative teams, because you mentioned Joe Stein on the libretto, and he's phenomenal. But I don't always put him in the same camp with the composer Charles Strauss, who wrote such hits as Annie and Bye Bye Birdie and It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman and Bring Back Birdie and Annie Warbucks.
Like 17 things based on comic books.
Right. And then the lyrics were by Stephen Schwartz, who was very young at the time and is now known as the composer of Wicked and Godspell and Pippin and all that, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame and all that. Yeah. It's just a very, very interesting confluence of creatives. Ooh, holy alliteration, Batman.
I love that. Yeah, there's a lot to dive into in the historical musical and theater thing, and there's a lot of compelling stories that need to be told. I think maybe for me, maybe you guys agree or disagree. One of the other things that I'm doing that is like, if you're Hamilton crazy, or if you are finding that you enjoy that like engagement with history, there are books. And there's historical fiction, there's historical fact. The book about Hamilton, or the book on which Hamilton is based by Ron Chernow, called Hamilton. He's written quite a few books about our founding fathers, and his ability to tell story through the historical context and the amount of research that he does, you'll see kind of the through line and the things that Lin-Manuel kind of picked up on in the book if you read it. And you'll also see the stuff that Lin-Manuel took liberties with in Hamilton if you read the book. But Lin-Manuel also put out a book called Hamilton, an American Musical.
I have that.
Yes, it has a lot of photos. It's not inexpensive, but I bet you could get it used on Amazon. And I would definitely get that as a paper book because it's a very tactile experience flipping through it. The way that they published it It's a beautiful volume. If you can find that at your library too, that'd be a good something to get on interlibrary loan if your library doesn't have it. But that's a great book if you want to know more about Hamilton and the story of the people who created it. And there's the Hamilton documentary that was on PBS, and I don't know where to find that at all. But it is the cast of Hamilton going to the historical locations from Hamilton's life. And it's wonderful. And talking about the story of making the musical. But that documentary crew also followed him around during In the Heights. And they made a documentary about In the Heights. And then they're like, oh, you're doing another project? Let's get in from the beginning of it. They had no idea it was going to become a cultural phenomenon because PBS doesn't, they were just like, oh, we liked you before. Let's try it again. So they are with Lin-Manuel Miranda in the process where he's writing My Shot with his creative team. Like you can see video of that happening in that documentary. So if you can find that, watch that too.
Yeah, I think it's very important to do further research after watching Hamilton or something like Fiddler into the context of when it was written and why it was written, because there are things that get left out for time's sake, right? I mean, Lin admits that like there are things that he had to leave out, had to cut, because there's just not enough time to cover that big of a project on stage. So definitely do more research about what was left out and what didn't get covered.
Paul?
Speaking of things that were cut from Hamilton, there's a song that he wrote about Hamilton's experience when he was coming back to New York after I can't remember what, and he got this beautiful reception, and he was like, well, you didn't like me before, and the song is called Cheering for Me Now, and it was cut from the show before it was ever even like fully fledged, but he wanted to write the song, and he wrote it with John Kander, who wrote the score to Chicago and Cabaret. Beautiful song. They were, Alex Lacamoire orchestrated it. They went to Avatar Studios and recorded it. And there's a video of that on YouTube of their whole recording process and then the beautiful song that came from it. It's very, very Lin and very John Kander. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
There's also like a third battle between him and Jefferson, is it?
Yeah.
That you can find, that they've animated it because they didn't like record them singing it, but they've got it recorded vocally, but they've animated it or whatever. And that one deals with abolition of slavery, I think, is what they're fighting over.
Yeah. So we're kind of running out of time. We have not decided on a topic for episode 13.
We'll go back and count.
It's episode 13. But I think for episode 13, lucky number 13, we should talk about maybe unlucky musicals or like Broadway musicals that had ill-fated Broadway. Maybe if that lights a fire. What do you guys think?
I like it.
Yeah.
I will talk about It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman until the cows come home. Let's go.
Season 1A, the It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman episodes of Table Talk. Oh, that's awesome. So in closing today, I think we're going to go around and talk about our favorite historical musical. So I'm going to give you guys like 5 seconds. Think of one. I'll start so that you guys don't have to like go off the fly. One that we haven't mentioned that I really like is Unsinkable Molly Brown.
That was my showcase song.
Yes. It's more on the classic musical side. It was written just after 1965, right? Mm-hmm. Is it, or just before? It's right in that sweet spot after the golden age 1950s, before the 1970s dang ching ching dong ching took over, and certainly before the 80s epics. The thing I like about Unsinkable Molly Brown is that in the periphery of Molly Brown's life, you have all of these significant historical events occurring, and you have a central figure who is a dynamic, interesting, fascinating woman It's a show that passes the Bechdel test a number of times, which makes me happy. Because it is possible to have a powerful female in a musical who's not 100% preoccupied with someone else marrying someone, her marrying someone, her not marrying someone, etc. Like, and that's the great thing about Unsinkable Molly Brown. And also, all of the women on this chat, and maybe Paul too, would be really good Molly Browns in different ways.
That's so true.
Let's just do a montage of different songs and it just intercuts between the three of us. And Paul. Paul, you can be.
Yeah.
Very different Molly Brown.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be kind of invading a space where I shouldn't be going. But
Gender bending. Yeah.
What do you mean?
There are just so few roles in musical theater for straight white men.
Shortcomings there, man.
Segue into my favorite historical musical that we haven't spoken about yet, because we did talk about my absolute favorite, which is 1776. I want to play John Adams, and I've already done Franklin. I just want to do it. I want to do it. I love that show.
Sit down, Paul.
Can you actually tell us a little bit more about that one, Paul? Because we didn't explain like the storyline of that.
Excellent. 1776 follows the founding fathers, specifically John Adams, as he leads the charge for independence, because it seems easy now that we were like, oh, we're mad at the British, we're going to declare independence. But it was not so simple. In 1775 and 1776, the nation was still like, well, we're British colonies. That's where I'm from. That's who I am. There were a lot of people who were not interested in a revolution, who didn't think that we could win a revolution. So it mainly takes place inside the Continental Congress. And for that reason, there's a lot of talking, a lot of long book scenes. So it might be a little difficult to get through for some of our younger viewers, but stick with it because it's brilliant dialogue. And it's all about this exchange of ideas and these men who are doing this very, very dangerous thing at the time. And you follow Jefferson as he writes the Declaration of Independence and how he struggles with that. And you watch Adams and Franklin and Edward Rutledge from South Carolina, debate about whether or not they should include the abolition of slavery in the founding of our country. And it's a very, very interesting take on something that we sort of deify these people, and we just think, oh, this happened so long ago. They were human beings. It's a beautiful show. But since we've already spoken about it, the show I was going to bring up was that 1970s film, and I'm going to talk about Cabaret, which is a flash forward to 1939, late 30s in Berlin, just before the Third Reich and the rise of Nazi Germany, and how different people were reacting to that impending crisis. And it's semi-fictional. It is based on a book called I Am a Camera, which is a memoir. It's not an autobiography, but it is about this man's time in It's British person's time in living in Berlin just before, and the people that he met and how different people reacted to the danger that was coming. And some people had no idea and thought, I'm just going to wait till it blows over. And some people thought, I've got to get out of here. And some people got on board with the Nazis. It's a very, and the movie is brilliant. Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey reprised their role. Well, I'm sorry, Liza Minnelli was not on Broadway. It was Jill Hayworth. But it's a brilliant movie. Bob Fosse directed and choreographed it. Yeah.
Which segues to my favorite historical musical. That is a bit of history that's extremely fictionalized with lots of other characters thrown in, but Pippin, which I think someone mentioned briefly earlier, but it's my absolute favorite. I love the music. Stephen Schwartz is amazing, everything that he does, and choreographed by Bob Fosse, which, if I haven't brought it up 10 million times in Table Talks, is my favorite Broadway choreographer and my dog's name. So yeah, Pippin is certainly my favorite. And they did a really cool Broadway revival of Pippin 5, 6 or so years back, where it was like circus themed. So everyone was doing all these crazy tumbling things, and it was just really, I didn't get to see it, but it looked really, really awesome. So that's my favorite.
Did you know, Molly, that Chicago is also a true story?
Is it really? I've always wondered, because I feel like I've heard that before. That's so neat.
Yeah, look her up. It's It's amazing. Velma Kelly and Roxy Hart are real people.
That's so cool.
Another one that's been highly fictionalized, but the stories themselves but the stories themselves are really compelling historical narratives.
And Pippin is the story of...
Well, there's King Charlemagne who's thrown in there. Was Pippin actually his son, or is Pippin completely...
Yes.
Okay, so Pippin is the son of King Charlemagne. But the musical was also like written in the 70s, so it has a lot of like 70s influence, but the story is like King Charlemagne, and then there's Fosse. So it's just really interesting. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, it's great. It's also good for like finding yourself, trying to figure out who you are as a person. It's there's a lot to relate to there. Miss Katie, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. Because it's not going to be anything new. I started off with my best, which was Fiddler. I hold it very dear. It's something my mom and I used to watch when I was very young, and so I grew up watching it as a movie musical. When I hit about middle school age, I did a musical, montage thing where we did songs from Fiddler, and I loved every second of it. And then one of my first professional gigs was Yenta in Fiddler at 10th Theater. I was 23 or something, playing like this super old lady, like it goes for myself. But I loved it. The cast is great. The story is great. I think the message behind the story is wonderful, and it is historical. It's a real story. It's people's story, and I think right now what we really need to hear is just people's stories. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, I love that. Those are all great selections, one, and two, a really good cross-section of the historical musical genre, because it is kind of a subgenre of whatever other stuff we're talking about. I think that dramatizations of people's real lives, it's great when you have a fictional story, but it is so interesting to me that so often the things that we're dealing with in these like real life shows are almost beyond the content of a fictional show. They're almost unbelievable because there's so many things that happen to these real people. And however you learn somebody's story, it's a great way. What better way to tell somebody's story than through music and dancing and theater and light and texture and color? So that concludes episode 12 of Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks. It has been an absolute pleasure. We are so happy to be back for the second half of our first season. We've been making some incredible plans for season 2. We'll be unrolling some of those for what we intend to be doing maybe in the future for season 2. But for now, please email us your questions about this episode. Make sure if you have suggestions for things that you would like to see, we would love to hear those. You can put those in the comments on Facebook, direct message the Goshen Theater on Facebook, and I'll get back to you, or put it in the comments here on our YouTube channel. And as always, a big special thank you to Goshen Noon Kiwanis for funding Goshen Theater Drama Club for 2020. Couldn't do it without you. We love you guys. And on behalf of everybody here, Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks, Paul Regano and the Quarantine Queens, we are signing out. Oh, Katie's got the merch.
Paul Regano and the Quarantine Queen.
My name's on a shirt. It is. I'm mailing that to you today, Paul.
Beside myself. Literally, because there I am.
If you'd like to order a Paul Regano and the Quarantine Queens t-shirt, let us know for the very reasonable price of more than you probably want to pay. But thank you for tuning in this week. We can't wait to join you next week for episode 13. Doomed Broadway. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.